I saw him exactly 3 seconds before he would have seen me. 3 seconds. That's all the warning I got before my entire carefully constructed new life was about to come crashing down around me. 3 seconds to make a decision that would either save me or destroy me, and I didn't have time to think about which one it would be. My name is Elliot Shaw. I'm 24 years old, and 6 months ago I ran away from my boyfriend in the middle of the night with nothing but a backpack, $200 in cash, and bruises I told myself were the last ones he'd ever give me. I moved 300 miles to a city where I didn't know anyone, got a job at a corner cafe that paid minimum wage and didn't ask questions, and spent every day looking over my shoulder, wondering when Cameron would find me. Turns out the answer was 6 months and 12 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon in October, on a busy downtown street where I'd just finished my shift and was walking home because I couldn't afford the bus fare. I spotted him across the street, standing outside a bookstore, talking to someone I didn't recognize. He hadn't seen me yet. He was scanning the crowd, that same methodical way he used to scan rooms at parties, cataloging faces, looking for something. Looking for me. My suppressants were working. I'd taken my dose this morning like I did every morning, heavy-duty prescription-strength blockers that masked my omega scent completely. Cameron couldn't smell me from across the street. But if he saw my face, if he recognized me, the scent wouldn't matter. He'd cross that street and I'd have maybe 10 seconds to run before he caught me. I'd seen what Cameron did to omegas who ran from him. I had the scars to prove it. So I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the first alpha, who walked past me, and threw myself into his arms. I didn't look at his face, didn't check if he was safe, didn't assess whether I was trading one danger for another. I just grabbed fistfuls of his very expensive suit jacket, buried my face in his chest, and wrapped my arms around him like he was a life raft, and I was drowning. Which, metaphorically, I was. The alpha froze. I felt his entire body go rigid with shock, felt his hands hover uncertainly near my shoulders like he didn't know whether to push me away or pull me closer. He smelled like steel and winter pine, crisp and cold and nothing like Cameron's suffocating cologne. "Please," I said, my voice muffled against his chest. "Please, just pretend you know me for 30 seconds. Please, I'm begging you. Who are you hiding from?" His voice was deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested he was used to getting answers when he asked questions. "My ex," I managed. "He can't see my face. Please, just 30 seconds. I felt the alpha's attention shift, felt him looking over my head, scanning the street. Then his hands came down on my shoulders, firm and grounding, and he turned us both so his body was blocking me from view completely. "Don't move," he said quietly. I didn't. I stood there with my face pressed against a stranger's chest, breathing in steel and pine, trying not to shake visibly while my heart hammered against my ribs. I could hear Cameron's voice getting closer, could track his movement by the sound of his footsteps on the sidewalk. He walked right past us. I waited, counting seconds in my head, until his footsteps faded into the general street noise. Then I counted 10 more seconds just to be sure before I finally allowed myself to step back. The alpha let me go immediately, his hands dropping to his sides, but he didn't step away. He was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair styled with the kind of precision that cost money, and eyes so pale gray they were almost silver. His suit was charcoal, perfectly tailored, with a tie that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked like money and power and complete control, and I had just grabbed him like a desperate stranger on the street, which was exactly what I was. "Thank you," I said quickly, taking another step back. "I'm so sorry. I know that was weird and inappropriate and probably borderline assault, and I swear I'm not. You're in danger." He said it like a statement, not a question. "It's fine. He didn't see me. Thank you for playing along. I really appreciate it. I should. What's your name?" I hesitated. Every instinct I'd developed over the past 6 months screamed at me not to give my real name to strangers. But he just helped me, and something about the way he was looking at me suggested that lying would be pointless anyway. "Elliot," I said. "Elliot." He said it like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. "I'm Matthias Gray, and you're coming with me." "What?" "No, I don't know you. I just needed—" That alpha is circling back. Matthias's eyes tracked something over my shoulder. "He's suspicious. Get in my car, or he'll see you. I turned slightly, keeping my face angled away from the street. Cameron was backtracking, moving more slowly now, scanning the crowd with the focused intensity of a predator who'd caught a scent. Any second now, he was going to look this direction and see me standing here with my face exposed, and it would all be over. Matthias's car was right there. Black, sleek, the kind of luxury sedan that cost more than I'd make in 5 years. The door locks clicked open. I got in. Matthias slid into the driver's seat with the kind of fluid grace that suggested he did everything with that same controlled precision. The engine started with barely a whisper. We pulled into traffic smoothly, professionally, and I watched through the tinted windows as Cameron continued scanning the sidewalk, completely oblivious to the fact that his target had just driven away in a car worth more than his annual salary. "Where are you taking me?" I asked once we were 3 blocks away, and my heart had stopped trying to punch its way out of my chest. "Somewhere safe," Matthias said. His hands on the steering wheel were steady, controlled, the hands of someone who was used to being in charge. "Who is he?" "My ex, Cameron. He's..." I trailed off, not sure how much to say. "He's not a good person. I left him 6 months ago. Changed cities. He's been looking for me." "He hit you." It wasn't a question. I touched my temple reflexively, where a faint scar cut through my left eyebrow. It had faded significantly in 6 months, but it would never fully disappear. "That's none of your business," I said quietly. "You can drop me at the next corner. I appreciate what you did, but I don't need..." "No." I blinked. "Excuse me? You hugged a stranger on the street because you were that terrified?" Matthias said, his voice matter of fact. "You're not going back to wherever you're staying alone when he's actively hunting you. You don't know that he's hunting me. He was scanning the crowd with purpose." Matthias interrupted. "He was looking for someone specific. That someone was you, which means he knows you're in this city, which means you're not safe." He was right, and I hated it. I'd been telling myself for months that I was paranoid, that Cameron had probably given up, that I was safe here. But the look on his face on that street had been pure determination. He hadn't given up. He'd narrowed down which city I was in, and it was only a matter of time before he found me. "Where are you taking me?" I asked again. "My apartment," Matthias said. "Absolutely not. You could be..." I stopped myself before I said worse than Cameron, because that felt unfair. This alpha had helped me without asking for anything in return. But I'd learned the hard way that alphas who seemed helpful often had ulterior motives. "I could be what?" Matthias asked. "A serial killer, a trafficker, someone who preys on desperate omegas." "Fair concerns," he acknowledged. "But if I wanted to hurt you, I could have done it on the street when you threw yourself at me. Instead, I'm offering you a safe place to stay while we figure out how to keep your ex from finding you." "We?" I repeated. "There's no we. I don't know you. You knew me well enough to use me as a human shield 20 minutes ago." I couldn't argue with that logic, which was infuriating. The car glided to a stop in front of a building that made my cafe apartment look like a cardboard box. Glass and steel, modern architecture, the kind of place that had doormen and probably required you to prove you had a certain net worth just to enter the lobby. "This is where you live?" I asked stupidly. "Penthouse," Matthias confirmed. Of course it was. He got out of the car and came around to open my door before I could do it myself. I climbed out reluctantly, very aware of how I must look in my cafe uniform, black pants that were worn at the knees, a white shirt that had seen better days, sneakers with a hole in the toe that I'd covered with duct tape. The doorman greeted Matthias by name, barely glanced at me. We rode the elevator in silence. Matthias used a keycard to access the penthouse level. The doors opened directly into his apartment. I'd never seen anything like it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Art on the walls that was probably worth more than my entire life. Everything was sleek and modern and completely impersonal, like a very expensive hotel room that no one actually lived in. "Guest room is down the hall, second door on the left," Matthias said, loosening his tie. "Bathroom attached. There should be towels. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. I need to make some calls." He walked away before I could respond, pulling out his phone and disappearing into what looked like a home office. The door closed with a soft click. I stood in the middle of the penthouse, clutching my backpack, trying to figure out what had just happened to my life. 6 hours ago, I'd been a cafe barista living in a studio apartment with water damage and a radiator that barely worked. Now I was standing in a penthouse apartment with a view of the entire city, invited here by an alpha I didn't know, hiding from an ex who'd somehow tracked me across 300 miles. I should leave. I should walk out right now, take my chances on the street, figure out my next move on my own like I'd been doing for 6 months. But I was so tired. Tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of working 2 jobs just to afford a place to sleep and suppressants to hide what I was, and Matthias had said I could stay. Just for tonight. Just to catch my breath. I found the guest room. It was bigger than my entire apartment, with a bed that looked like sleeping on a cloud and a bathroom that had heated floors. I took a shower that lasted 30 minutes just because I could, because the water was hot and the pressure was perfect and no one was banging on the door telling me I was using too much water. When I came out, there was a note on the bed in sharp, precise handwriting. Clothes in the closet if you need them. Dinner in an hour if you're hungry. M. The closet had clothes in my size. Not just any clothes, soft lounge pants, t-shirts that felt like they cost more than my weekly paycheck, a hoodie that was probably cashmere. How did he know my size? I pulled on the pants and a t-shirt, padded back out to the living room in bare feet. Matthias was in the kitchen, still in his suit pants and dress shirt, but without the jacket and tie, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He was doing something at the stove that smelled incredible. "You cook?" I asked, surprised. "I have to eat," he said without turning around. "Might as well make it edible. Most CEOs just order in." He glanced at me over his shoulder. "How did you know I'm a CEO?" I gestured vaguely at the apartment. Lucky guess based on the penthouse and the designer suits. Fair assessment. He went back to whatever he was cooking. Gray industries, tech, and real estate. Sounds successful. It pays the bills. He said it so dryly that I almost laughed. His bills were probably more than most people's salaries. I sat at the kitchen island, watching him work. His movements were efficient, practiced. This wasn't someone who'd just learned to cook. He knew what he was doing. "Why are you helping me?" I asked after a few minutes of silence. "Because I can," he said simply, "and because no one should be that afraid. You don't know me. I could be lying about everything." "Are you?" "No, but you don't know that." He turned off the stove, plated food with the kind of presentation I'd only seen in restaurants I couldn't afford, pasta with vegetables and some kind of sauce that smelled like heaven. He set a plate in front of me, then took the stool across from me with his own plate. "Eat," he said. I picked up my fork, took a bite, and almost groaned. It was incredible. When was the last time I'd had a real meal instead of instant ramen or whatever was about to expire at the cafe? "This is really good," I said. "Thank you." We ate in silence for a while. Then, "You can stay here tonight," Matthias said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out a plan to keep you safe." "I can't accept this," I said automatically. "I don't even know you. You knew me well enough to use me as a human shield an hour ago. I'd walked right into that one. You're never going to let me live that down, are you?" "Probably not." Was that amusement in his voice? It was hard to tell. His expression barely changed. "Why do you care?" I asked. "About keeping me safe. You could have just let me hide behind you for 30 seconds and walked away. Why bring me here? Why feed me? Why offer to help?" Matthias was quiet for a long moment. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. Then, "Because I saw the fear in your eyes when you grabbed me, and I recognized it." "From what?" "From my mother," he said quietly. "Before she left my father, she had that same look, that terror of being seen, of being found, and no one helped her, no one stepped in. So she stayed until it was too late." My throat felt tight. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just let me help you. You don't have to trust me. You just have to accept that I'm not going to hurt you." I wanted to trust him. God, I wanted to trust someone. But Cameron had seemed safe at first, too. Charming, protective, attentive. It wasn't until I was completely dependent on him that the mask came off. "Okay," I said finally. "One night, and then I'll figure out my next move." Matthias nodded once. One night. I went to bed in that guest room with its cloud-soft mattress and its view of the city, and for the first time in 6 months, I slept without nightmares. I woke up to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back: Cameron, the street, Matthias, the penthouse. I'd stayed the night in a stranger's apartment. What was I thinking? I needed to leave. Before Matthias woke up, before this got more complicated, before I let myself get comfortable somewhere I didn't belong, I dressed quickly in my cafe uniform, grabbed my backpack, and crept down the hallway as quietly as possible. The living room was empty. Maybe I'd get lucky and Matthias was still asleep and I could just slip out and leaving without saying goodbye. I jumped. Matthias was in the kitchen, already dressed in a different suit, this one navy blue with a crisp white shirt. He was pouring coffee into 2 mugs. I need to get to work, I said. Thank you for letting me stay, but I should. Where do you work? Corner cafe on 5th Street, but I'm already late and my boss is going to call in sick. I stared at him. I can't afford to miss a shift. I'll cover your lost wages. Why would you do that? Matthias set down the coffee pot, picked up both mugs, walked over, and handed me one. Because I'm hiring you. Hiring me to do what? Personal assistant? I laughed. It came out more bitter than I intended. I work in a cafe. I have no office experience. I don't even have a college degree. What makes you think I could be your assistant? You think fast under pressure, Matthias said. You're observant enough to spot your ex before he spotted you. You made a split-second decision to protect yourself and executed it flawlessly. Those are exactly the skills I need. I grabbed a stranger on the street. That's not a job qualification. It is for me. He took a sip of his coffee, watching me over the rim. I need someone who can adapt quickly, make decisions without second-guessing, and handle unexpected situations. You demonstrated all of that yesterday. What's the catch? No catch. You need safety and income. I need an assistant. It's mutually beneficial. What's the salary? He named a number that made me choke on my coffee. It was 5 times what I made at the cafe. With that kind of money, I could afford my own place, a better apartment, maybe even save enough to move again if I needed to. That's too much, I said automatically. That's market rate for my assistant. Your last assistant made that much? I've never had an assistant before. Then how do you know that's market rate? Because I researched it. He said it like it was obvious. I pay fair wages for the position. Take it or don't, but the offer stands. I should have said no, should have walked out, gone to my cafe shift, continued my anonymous minimum wage life. But that number was echoing in my head. With that kind of money, I could breathe. I could stop working 2 jobs. I could actually have a life instead of just surviving. If I say yes, I said slowly, where would I live? My current apartment is a studio with mold issues and a landlord who refuses to fix anything. Here. Here as in, your penthouse? It's safer, Matthias said. Cameron knows what neighborhood you work in. If he's determined enough, he'll find your apartment eventually. Here there's security, cameras, a doorman who screens visitors. You'd have the guest room, full privacy. I'm not suggesting we. He paused. This is purely professional. You'd work for me and live here for your own safety. Nothing else. It was too good to be true. Had to be. Nobody offered this much without wanting something in return. What do you actually want from me? I asked bluntly. Because men don't offer Omega's jobs and housing out of pure altruism. So what is it? You want me in your bed? You want me dependent on you so you can control me? I want to help you, Matthias interrupted, and there was an edge to his voice now. That's all. I saw someone in danger, and I have the resources to help. If that's too difficult to believe, then say no and walk away. But don't insult me by assuming I have ulterior motives. I studied his face. He looked genuinely offended, which was unexpected. Cameron would have laughed if I'd accused him of having ulterior motives. Would have made some comment about how I should be grateful anyone wanted me at all. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll try it. 1-week trial. If it doesn't work out, I walk away. No hard feelings. Agreed. We shook on it. His hand was warm, his grip firm, but not crushing. And when our skin touched, I swear I felt something, a spark, a pull, something that made my suppressants feel inadequate for just a second. I pulled my hand back quickly. When do I start? I asked. Now. Matthias checked his watch. I have a meeting at 9. You'll accompany me, take notes, observe how I work. We'll figure out the rest as we go. And just like that, my life changed again. The first week working for Matthias Gray was an education in what it meant to be wealthy and powerful. He worked 16-hour days, never seemed to sleep, and ran his empire with the kind of efficiency that was either impressive or terrifying, depending on how you looked at it. My job, as it turned out, was mostly organizational. I managed his calendar, screened his calls, took notes in meetings, and made sure he actually ate lunch instead of working through it. It wasn't difficult work, it was just constant. But the pay was exactly what he'd promised, deposited into a new bank account he helped me set up, and the penthouse was, well, it was the nicest place I'd ever lived. The guest room became mine. I put my few belongings in the closet, set my alarm clock on the nightstand, hung my cafe uniform in the back because I couldn't quite bring myself to throw it away, just in case. Matthias was a strange roommate. He was barely there, for one thing. He left for the office before I woke up, came home after I'd gone to bed, worked weekends in his home office with the door closed. The few times we overlapped, he was polite but distant, professional. Like we were coworkers who happened to share an address, nothing more. It should have been perfect, but something about it felt wrong. I couldn't figure out what, exactly. Matthias had been nothing but respectful. He'd given me exactly what he'd promised: safety, income, privacy. He never made comments about my designation, never asked invasive questions, never even looked at me in a way that made me uncomfortable. But sometimes I'd catch him watching me with this intensity that made my suppressants feel like they were working overtime, like he was holding himself back from something. 2 weeks into the job, I made dinner. It started as a practical thing. Matthias had mentioned offhand that he usually just ordered takeout because he didn't have time to cook. I pointed out that I had time, and I was living in his house rent-free, so the least I could do was make sure he ate something that wasn't delivered in a cardboard container. He'd looked at me like I'd suggested something revolutionary. "You want to cook for me?" "I want to earn my keep," I corrected. "There's a difference." So I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta with vegetables, the kind of simple meal I used to make when I had a kitchen that wasn't falling apart. I set the table, plated the food, and waited for Matthias to come home. He walked in at 8:30, saw the table set for two, and froze. "What's this?" he asked. "Dinner. You said you were going to be home by 8. You're late, but I kept it warm." Matthias stood there for a long moment, just staring at the table like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. Then, "No one's ever cooked for me before." "What about your mother?" "She died when I was 7. "Oh." I felt like an idiot. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." He set down his briefcase, loosened his tie. "You didn't have to do this." "I know, but I wanted to. Consider it payment for the obscenely nice room and the job that pays way too much." He sat down across from me, picked up his fork, took a bite. His expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in his eyes. "This is good," he said quietly. "It's just pasta. It's more than that." We ate in silence for a while. Then Matthias said, "Tell me about your ex. What should I be watching for?" I set down my fork. "Why?" "Because he's still looking for you. And if he's as obsessive as I think he is, he won't stop. So I need to know what we're dealing with." "We aren't dealing with anything. This is my problem." "You became my problem when you grabbed me on that street," he said it matter-of-factly. "So tell me, what's his pattern?" I didn't want to talk about Cameron. Didn't want to drag those memories into this space that felt safe and clean and separate from all of that. But Matthias was right. If Cameron was actively searching, I needed to be prepared. "He's possessive," I said finally. "Sees Omega's his property. We dated for 2 years before I realized he was isolating me from everyone I knew. By the time I tried to leave, I had no friends, no family willing to take me in, no job because he'd convinced me I didn't need one." "How did you get away?" I waited until he went on a business trip, packed a bag, took what cash I could find, got on a bus. I stared at my plate. He reported me missing, told everyone I'd been kidnapped. Played the concerned boyfriend, but I knew if he found me, he'd kill me before he'd let me go. "Has he tried to contact you since you left?" I changed my number, deleted all my social media. I don't exist online anymore. I laughed bitterly. I barely exist in real life. "You exist," Matthias said quietly. "You're right here." Something about the way he said it made my chest feel tight. "What about you?" I asked, changing the subject. Why doesn't the powerful CEO have a mate? I'm sure Omegas throw themselves at you constantly. They do, he said dryly. And they're always disappointed when I turn them down. Why do you turn them down? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I haven't found the right one. What makes someone the right one? I'll know when I find them. There was something in his voice, something I couldn't quite identify. But before I could ask, he stood up, started clearing the table. You cooked. I'll clean. You don't have to. I want to. So I let him. And I tried very hard not to think about how domestic this felt, how easy it would be to pretend this was real, instead of just a business arrangement with a generous employer. 3 weeks in, my suppressant started failing. I'd been stressed, not sleeping well, forgetting to take my doses on time, and suppressants were finicky. They needed consistency to work properly. Miss a dose or take it late and the effectiveness decreased exponentially. I didn't realize it was happening until I walked into the living room one evening and Matthias went absolutely still. He was standing by the windows, had been looking out at the city, but the moment I entered the room, his entire body tensed, his hands clenched at his sides. His breathing changed, went deeper, more controlled. Elliot, he said, and his voice was rough. You're sent. Panic flooded me. I'm sorry. My suppressants, I'll take more. Don't. He still hadn't turned around. Don't mask it. What? You're sent. It's... He took a breath, let it out slowly. Rain and jasmine. It's the most incredible thing I've ever smelled. I froze. You shouldn't be able to smell me at all. I'm on suppressants. They're not working. He finally turned to face me, and his eyes... God, his eyes were different, darker, more intense. Elliot, do you know what fated mates are? My heart stopped. That's a myth. It's not. He took a step toward me, stopped when I took a step back. I knew the moment you touched me on that street, the moment I caught your scent for the first time. You're my fated mate. No, I shook my head. No, that's not possible. That doesn't happen. People don't just... It does happen. It's rare, but it happens. And it happened to us. You're lying. Why would I lie about this? Because you want to claim me. Because I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, too hot. You've been lying to me this whole time. The job, the apartment, helping me, it was all just to get me here, to get me dependent on you so I couldn't leave when you... I haven't lied to you. Matthias said, and there was an edge to his voice now. Everything I offered is real. The job is real. The safety is real. I just didn't tell you why I was offering it. Because you want to claim me. Because I want to protect you. He ran a hand through his hair, a crack in his usually perfect composure. Yes, eventually. If you want it too, I want to bond with you. But I'm not Cameron Elliott. I'm not going to force you into anything. I couldn't process this. Couldn't think. My omega biology was screaming at me that he was telling the truth, that he was my alpha, that I should submit to the bond. But my brain, my rational human brain that remembered Cameron's fists and his lies, was screaming louder. I need space, I said. Matthias stepped back immediately. Of course. I can't. I need to think. I turned and fled to my room, closed the door, locked it, even though I knew it wouldn't keep him out if he really wanted in. But he didn't follow. Didn't knock. Didn't try to talk to me through the door. I sat on my bed with my back against the headboard and tried to figure out what to do. Fated mates. It was supposed to be this perfect romantic thing. Two people destined for each other, biologically compatible, meant to be together forever. But I'd learned not to trust biology. Cameron had used my omega designation against me, convinced me that my instincts to please him were natural, that my submission was right and good, and exactly what I was meant for. What if this was the same thing? What if fated mates was just another way for alphas to control omegas, to make us think we didn't have a choice? But Matthias had given me choices. Every step of the way, he'd offered me the job, let me decide whether to take it. He'd offered me a place to stay, respected my privacy. He'd never once made me feel like I owed him anything. Until now. Now he was telling me I was biologically designed to be his. How was I supposed to choose freely when my entire body was programmed to want him? I didn't sleep that night. Lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the pull of him through the walls, wondering if he could feel it too. In the morning, I almost left. Packed my bag, wrote a resignation letter, had my hand on the doorknob before I stopped myself, and asked the question that had been haunting me all night: where would I go? Back to the cafe? Back to my moldy studio apartment where Cameron could find me? Back to working 2 jobs just to survive while looking over my shoulder constantly? Or stay here with an alpha who claimed I was his fated mate, who'd given me safety and stability and the closest thing to peace I'd had in years? It wasn't really a choice, not when the alternative was going back to the life I'd barely escaped from. I unpacked my bag. The next few weeks were the most awkward of my life. Matthias and I maintained our professional relationship at work, but at home we were like strangers sharing an apartment. We barely spoke. When we did, it was polite and distant and carefully neutral. I could feel him holding back, could sense the effort it took for him to maintain that distance, and my omega biology was not happy about it. My suppressants were completely ineffective now. My scent flooded the apartment constantly, and I could smell him too. Steel and winter pine mixing with my rain and jasmine until the whole place smelled like us. It was torture, but I was stubborn. I'd spent 2 years with Cameron learning to ignore my omega instincts, learning to push down the biological imperative to submit and please. I could do the same thing now. I could resist the pull of the bond. Until Cameron showed up at Matthias's office. I was at my desk outside Matthias's private office, scheduling his meetings for the next week when security called. "Miss Shaw, there's an alpha here demanding to see Mr. Gray. Says his name is Cameron Hart and he's looking for his omega." My blood turned to ice. "Don't let him up. He's insisting. Call Mr. Gray. Now." Matthias appeared in his doorway 30 seconds later. "What's wrong?" "Cameron's in the lobby." I watched every muscle in Matthias's body go taut. His sense spiked, went sharp with alpha aggression. "Stay here." "Matthias." "Stay. Here." He was already moving toward the elevator. I didn't stay. I pulled up the security camera feed on my computer, watched Matthias step out of the elevator into the lobby, watched him walk straight up to Cameron. Cameron looked exactly like I remembered. Tall, conventionally handsome, with that smile that had fooled me for so long. But I could see the anger underneath it now. The barely controlled rage. "Where is he?" Cameron demanded. "Where's Elliot?" "He's not here," Matthias said, his voice cold enough to frost glass. "Bullshit. I tracked him to this building. He works here, doesn't he? You hired him. Probably have him warming your bed like the good little omega he is." Matthias moved so fast I almost missed it. 1 second Cameron was standing, the next he was on the floor with Matthias's fist connecting with his jaw. "Don't," Matthias said quietly. "Talk about him like that." Cameron laughed, blood on his teeth. "Oh, you've got it bad. Does he know? Does he know you're just like every other alpha who wants to own him? I'm nothing like you." "Sure you're not. You just hired him out of the goodness of your heart, right? Gave him a job, a place to stay, probably buying him nice things, making him dependent on you. That's not ownership, that's just, what do you call it? Protection?" Matthias grabbed Cameron by the collar, hauled him up. "You have 10 seconds to leave before I have you arrested for trespassing. He's my omega. He left you. That means you lost him, and now he's under my protection. If you come near him again, I'll destroy you." Matthias's voice dropped lower. "I have the resources to make you disappear, Cameron. To ruin your life so thoroughly, you'll wish I'd just killed you instead. Don't test me." He released Cameron, stepped back. Security moved in, dragged Cameron toward the exit. But Cameron was still talking, still shouting. "You think you're better than me? You're not. You're just another alpha who saw something he wanted and took it. He'll figure it out eventually. He'll realize you're all the same." They got him out. Matthias stood there for a moment, hands clenched, breathing hard. Then he looked directly at the security camera, at me. I minimized the feed quickly, pretended to be working, when he came back upstairs. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine. Is he gone?" "Yes. And he won't be coming back." Matthias's jaw was tight. "I've filed a restraining order. If he comes within 500 feet of you or this building, he'll be arrested." "Thank you. I also assigned you a security detail They'll be discreet, but they'll be there whenever you leave this building. That's not necessary. It is. His voice left no room for argument. He found you once, he'll try again, and I'm not letting him get near you. I should have argued, should have insisted I could take care of myself, but the truth was, I'd been terrified watching Cameron in that lobby. Terrified of what would have happened if Matthias hadn't been there. Okay, I said quietly. That night I couldn't stop replaying the security footage in my head, watching Matthias defend me without hesitation, without calculation. He'd punched Cameron without even thinking about the consequences, had threatened him with complete conviction. He'd been willing to destroy another alpha just to keep me safe. That wasn't ownership. That was something else entirely. I found him in his study, working late as always. Knocked on the doorframe. "Come in," he said, without looking up. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me. "We need to talk." About? About what you said, about fated mates, about us. Matthias set down his pen, gave me his full attention. "What do you want to know? Why did you help me that day on the street, before you knew about the bond? Why did you stop? Because you needed help. But why did you care?" He was quiet for a moment. My mother was an Omega. My father was an Alpha who saw her as property. When she finally tried to leave, he found her, beat her badly enough that she never recovered. She died a year later from complications. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched on the desk. I swore I'd never let that happen to another Omega if I could help it. So when you grabbed me, when I saw that fear in your eyes, I recognized it, and I couldn't walk away. And then you scented me. Yes, and then everything changed. Because you weren't just an Omega who needed help anymore. You were my Omega, my mate, the one I'd been waiting for my whole life without knowing I was waiting. "How do you know?" I asked. "How do you know it's real and not just biology playing tricks on us?" "Because I feel it here," he touched his chest. "Not just instinct, not just attraction, it's deeper than that. When you're in pain, I feel it. When you're happy, I feel it. When Cameron showed up today, I wanted to kill him. Not because he was a threat to me, but because he'd hurt you. Because the thought of anyone hurting you makes me want to burn the world down." I took a shaky breath. "That scares me." "I know, and I understand why. But Elliot," he stood up, came around the desk, but kept his distance. "I'm not asking you to trust the bond. I'm asking you to trust me. The man who's cooked you breakfast every morning. The man who's never made you feel unsafe. The man who's tried his damnedest to respect your boundaries even when everything in me is screaming to claim you. What if I can't?" I whispered. "What if I'm too broken to trust anyone? Then I'll wait, however long it takes, because you're worth waiting for." Something in me cracked open. Some wall I'd been building since the day I left Cameron, brick by brick, protecting myself from ever being hurt again. "I want to trust you," I admitted. "I just don't know how." "Start small," Matthias said. "Trust me with one thing, just one, and we'll build from there." I looked at him, really looked at him, at this alpha who'd given me everything and asked for nothing, who'd defended me, protected me, respected me, who'd waited patiently while I figured out what I wanted instead of just taking what he thought he was entitled to. "Okay," I said. "One thing. What do you need?" "I need you to help me stop being afraid. I need you to teach me that not all alphas are like Cameron. That maybe I can be claimed without being owned." Something shifted in Matthias's eyes. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I want to try. With you. With this bond. But slowly. On my terms." "Always on your terms," Matthias agreed. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe. The next few weeks were different. We were still careful, still slow, but the distance between us started to close. Matthias would sit next to me on the couch while we watched TV instead of across the room. I'd bring him coffee in the morning, and our fingers would brush when he took the cup. Small touches, small moments of connection, building trust one interaction at a time. And then my heat started. I'd been on suppressants so long I'd almost forgotten what heat felt like, but stress could trigger it early, and between Cameron showing up and the bond trying to form, my body decided it was done waiting. It hit at 3 in the morning. I woke up burning, my skin too sensitive, my body screaming for alpha, for Matthias specifically. The bond pulled at me, demanded I go to him, find him, let him claim me. I locked my bedroom door instead. Tried to write it out, told myself I could handle this. I'd had heats before, I knew what to do, but I'd never had a heat with my fated mate sleeping down the hall. Never had my biology pulling at me this insistently, this desperately. I lasted 20 minutes before I was crying from the pain of it. Elliot? Matthias's voice, rough and strained, from outside my door. Let me in. I can't, I managed. If you come in here, I'll beg you to claim me, and I don't know if I actually want it or if it's just the heat talking. Open the door. No. Elliot, I can smell your distress from here, your pain. Please, let me help you. If you come in, I won't be able to stop myself. Then don't stop yourself. His voice was gentle. Let me in. Let me help. I promise I won't claim you unless you explicitly ask me to. But I can't leave you in there, suffering. I crawled to the door, unlocked it with shaking hands. Matthias pushed it open immediately, and the sight of him made my omega instincts sing. He was in sleep pants and nothing else, his chest bare, his hair messy from sleep. He smelled like winter pine and alpha and mine. Please, I heard myself whimper. Please, I need. I know what you need. He scooped me up easily, carried me to the bed, laid me down gently. But we're going to do this right. We're going to talk first. Can't think. Need you. Need. Elliot. His hand cupped my face, made me focus on him. I need you to listen. Can you do that? I nodded, even though everything in me was screaming to just pull him down and let biology take over. I'm going to help you through your heat, Matthias said clearly, but I'm not going to claim you unless you ask me to when you're clear-headed, not in heat haze. Not when your biology is making decisions for you. If you want the bond, you'll ask for it when you can think straight. Understand? Yes, please, just, I've got you, he murmured, and then his mouth was on mine, and nothing else mattered. He helped me through 3 days of heat. True to his word, he didn't claim me, didn't bite, didn't bond, just gave me what my body needed to get through it. And when the heat finally broke, when I came back to myself, he was still there, holding me, keeping me safe, waiting for me to decide what I wanted. You didn't claim me, I said, my voice hoarse from 3 days of crying and moaning and begging. You didn't ask me to. I wanted to. During the heat. I wanted it so badly. I know, but I needed you to want it when your biology wasn't making the choice for you. I turned in his arms, looked up at his face. He looked exhausted, like helping me through heat without claiming me had cost him everything. But he'd done it anyway. For me. What if I want it now? I whispered. What if I'm asking? Are you asking? I think so. I think I want. I took a breath. I want to try. With you, with this bond. But I'm still scared. I know you are. And I'll spend every day proving that you're safe with me, that I'll never be Cameron, that this bond means partnership, not ownership. Okay. Okay? Okay. I want this. I want you. I want the bond. Matthias's eyes went dark. You're sure? I'm sure. Then say it clearly, so there's no misunderstanding. I sat up, looked him directly in the eyes. Matthias Gray, I want you to claim me. I want you to bond with me. I want to be yours. The word yours had barely left my mouth before he was kissing me again. Different this time. Purposeful. Claiming. When his teeth found my scent gland, when he bit down and the bond snapped into place like a physical thing connecting us, I gasped. I could feel him. His emotions, his satisfaction, his overwhelming love for me pouring through the bond like a flood. My turn, I said when he pulled back. And I bit him too, right over his scent gland, marking him as mine just as thoroughly as he'd marked me. The bond was complete. I love you, Matthias said against my temple. I've loved you since the moment you threw yourself into my arms. I love you too, I whispered back. Even though you're kind of presumptuous and bossy and way too good at getting your way. He laughed, actually laughed. You wouldn't love me if I wasn't. He was probably right. The next morning I woke up bonded, claimed, completely changed. I could feel Matthias even when he wasn't in the room, could sense his emotions through the bond. It was overwhelming and perfect and exactly what I needed. But we still had one problem. Cameron. The restraining order helped, But Matthias was right, someone that obsessive didn't give up just because the law said to. 2 weeks after the bonding, Cameron violated the order. Broke into the penthouse while Matthias was at work. I don't know how he got past security, how he made it up to the penthouse level, but I came out of the bedroom and he was standing in the living room. "Elliot," he said, and his voice was the same fake sweet tone I remembered. "Baby, I've been looking everywhere for you." I should have run, should have called security immediately, but all I could think was, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not running from you ever again. "Get out," I said clearly. "You're violating a restraining order. Security is already on their way." "Is that any way to greet your mate?" He took a step closer. "I've forgiven you for running away, for making me chase you across the state, for letting that alpha touch you. Just come home with me, and we can." He saw the claiming mark on my neck, saw the bite that marked me as Matthias's. His expression changed, went from fake sweet to pure rage in a heartbeat. "You let him mark you?" Cameron's voice was deadly quiet. "You're mine. You belong to me." He lunged for me. Fast, violent, exactly like I remembered. But I'd been taking self-defense classes. Matthias had hired an instructor, insisted I learn to protect myself. And 6 months of running, 6 months of fear, 6 months of being a victim, it all crystallized into pure fury. I dodged Cameron's grab, used his momentum against him, brought my elbow up into his face exactly like my instructor had taught me. His nose broke with a satisfying crunch. Cameron staggered back, blood pouring from his nose. "You little..." Security burst in. 3 guards, all alphas, all loyal to Matthias. They had Cameron in restraints before he could finish his sentence. "Mr. Shaw," one of them said, "are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, and I was. My hands were shaking, but I was fine. "Get him out of here." They dragged Cameron away. He was still shouting, still making threats, still insisting I belonged to him, but I didn't care. Because I could feel Matthias through the bond, could feel him racing back to the penthouse, could feel his fear and rage and desperate need to make sure I was okay. He burst through the door 5 minutes later, pulled me into his arms before I could say anything. "Are you hurt?" His hands were running over me, checking for injuries. "Did he touch you? Did he..." "I'm okay. I broke his nose." Matthias pulled back, stared at me. "You what?" "I broke his nose. Like you taught me. Well, like the instructor you hired taught me." A slow smile spread across his face. "That's my Omega." The pride in his voice, the absolute satisfaction through the bond made me laugh. "Yeah, I guess I am." Cameron went to trial 3 months later. Restraining order violation, breaking and entering, assault. But the prosecutors found something else during their investigation, other Omegas he'd abused. A pattern of behavior going back years, women and men who'd been too scared to come forward before. I testified, faced him in court, told my story while Matthias sat in the gallery, sending strength through the bond every time I faltered. Cameron was sentenced to 8 years. Not enough for what he'd done, but enough that I could breathe, enough that I could start to heal. 6 months after the bonding, I quit my job as Matthias's assistant. "I need to do something for myself," I explained. "Not because you need an assistant, but because I want a career, something that's mine." "What do you want to do?" "I'm thinking about social work, helping other Omegas who've been in situations like mine, using my experience for something good." Matthias pulled me close, kissed my temple. "Then do it. I'll support you however you need." And he did. Paid for my education, supported me through 4 years of college and 2 years of grad school, never once made me feel like I owed him anything. I graduated with my master's in social work on a Tuesday afternoon in May. Matthias was in the audience, and when they called my name, I swear I felt his pride through the bond so strongly it made me tear up. After the ceremony, we went to the place where it all started, the street corner where I'd grabbed him, where our entire future had changed in 30 seconds. "Do you remember this spot?" I asked. "Every detail," Matthias said. "You were wearing your cafe uniform. Your suppressants were failing. You looked terrified and determined at the same time. I thought I was making a split-second decision to save myself from Cameron. I didn't know I was actually running straight into my future." "Best decision you ever made." "Second best," I corrected. "The best decision was saying yes when you asked me to trust you." Matthias pulled me close, right there on that same street corner. "You know what the best decision I ever made was?" "What?" stopping, letting you grab me, deciding in that moment that whoever you were running from, I was going to make sure they never got to you. I kissed him, there on the street where it all began, and thought about how far we'd come. From a desperate Omega, running from abuse, to a social worker helping others. From a cold CEO who never smiled, to an alpha who laughed regularly and cooked dinner most nights just because he liked taking care of me. No regrets? I asked. Never, he said. And through the bond, I felt the absolute truth of it. 1 year after I graduated, Matthias proposed. Not in a restaurant or at some grand event. He proposed in our kitchen on a Sunday morning while I was making pancakes and he was reading the newspaper. He just set down the paper, pulled a ring box from his pocket, and said, "Marry me." I turned off the stove. "We're already bonded." "I know, but I want to marry you too. I want to stand in front of everyone and promise you everything I already promised through the bond. I want you to have my name legally, not just biologically." Elliot Gray, I tested the sound of it. It sounds pretentious. It sounds perfect. He opened the box. The ring was simple, elegant, exactly what I would have chosen if he'd asked. "So, what do you say?" "Yes, obviously yes." We got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just close friends and colleagues. I invited my self-defense instructor, who'd become a good friend. Matthias invited his business partners, who'd become surprisingly supportive once they realized I wasn't going anywhere. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, exactly, but from this overwhelming sense of gratitude. 3 years ago, I'd been running for my life. Now I was about to marry the man who'd saved me without even meaning to. Matthias found me on the balcony at 2 a.m., staring out at the city. "Second thoughts?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "No. Just thinking about how different my life is now. Better different, or worse different." I turned in his arms. "So much better it's almost scary. Sometimes I wake up and I'm afraid I'll realize this is all a dream. That I'm still in that studio apartment, still working at the cafe, still looking over my shoulder for Cameron." "It's not a dream," Matthias said firmly. "This is real. I'm real. We're real." "I know. It's just 3 years ago I was so broken I couldn't imagine ever trusting anyone again. And now I trust you with everything." "Good. Because you can. Always." The wedding was perfect. I walked down the aisle to Matthias, who looked at me like I was the only person in the world. We said our vows. I promised to love him, trust him, build a life with him. He promised to protect me, support me, never give me reason to doubt him. When the officiant pronounced us married, Matthias kissed me, and I felt the bond sing with his joy. At the reception, my coworker from the Omega Advocacy Center pulled me aside. "You know you give a lot of people hope, right?" "What do you mean?" "Your story. Omega, who escaped an abusive alpha, built a new life, found his fated mate. A lot of the Omegas I work with, they think they're too broken to be loved. Then they hear about you and they realize it's possible." "I'm not special," I protested. "You're brave. That's special enough." 2 years into our marriage, I came home to find Matthias in the nursery. We'd been talking about kids, not seriously, just hypothetically. But apparently Matthias had been taking the conversation more seriously than I realized, because he'd converted the guest room into a fully equipped nursery. "What is this?" I asked from the doorway. "A nursery." He looked up from the crib he was assembling. "For when you're ready. If you're ready, no pressure." "You built an entire nursery on the off chance I might want kids?" "I built a nursery because I know you want kids. You just haven't said it out loud yet." He wasn't wrong. I'd been thinking about it. About what it would be like to have a child. To give them the childhood I never had. Safe, loved, protected. "What if I'm a terrible parent?" I asked quietly. "What if I mess them up the way Cameron messed me up?" Matthias set down the screwdriver, came over to me. "You won't. Because you're aware of the damage. You're actively working to heal it. You won't repeat those patterns." "How do you know?" "Because I know you. And I know you'd rather die than hurt someone the way you were hurt." He was right about that, too. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it. Let's have a kid." My heat came a month later. We were ready this time, supplies stocked, schedule cleared, nursery prepared. And this time, When Matthias claimed me during heat, we both knew we were trying for something more than just bonding. When the heat broke and I took the test, it was positive. I was pregnant. The pregnancy was harder than I expected. Not physically, my omega biology handled it well enough. But emotionally, I kept having panic attacks about being a parent, about whether I could actually do this, whether I could keep a child safe when I'd barely kept myself safe. Matthias was patient, held me through the panic attacks, reminded me that I wasn't alone, that we were doing this together. He went to every doctor's appointment, asked questions I was too overwhelmed to ask, made sure I ate when I forgot to. And through it all, the bond kept me grounded. I could feel his confidence in me, his absolute certainty that I was going to be an amazing parent. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday morning in April, 6 pounds, 3 ounces, with Matthias's eyes and my stubborn chin. We named her Hope. Because you gave me hope when I had none left. I told Matthias while he held her for the first time, and I want her to have that, to know that even in the darkest times, there's always hope. Matthias kissed her forehead gently. She's perfect. Yeah, she really is. The first year of Hope's life was chaos. Beautiful, exhausting chaos. Neither of us knew what we were doing. We learned by trial and error, made mistakes, figured it out as we went. But we were doing it together, and that made all the difference. When Hope was 6 months old, I went back to work part-time at the advocacy center. Matthias had offered to let me stay home, said we didn't need the money, but I needed the work, needed to feel like I was making a difference. One of my first clients after returning was an Omega named Jake, 22, fresh out of a relationship with an alpha who'd isolated him, controlled him, hurt him. He sat in my office, barely able to make eye contact, and told me he'd never be able to trust anyone again. I felt the same way, I told him. 3 years ago, I was convinced that all alphas were dangerous, that I'd never be safe, that I'd spend the rest of my life running. What changed? I met someone who showed me that not all alphas are the same, who proved through his actions that I could trust him. It didn't happen overnight, it took months. But eventually I realized I had a choice. I could stay broken, or I could let myself heal. And you chose to heal. I chose to try. Some days I still struggle. I still have nightmares sometimes. I still flinch at loud noises. But I'm better than I was. And you will be too. Jake came back every week for 6 months. Slowly, carefully. I watched him rebuild himself. Watched him go from barely able to speak to advocating for himself. Watched him smile genuinely for the first time. The day he told me he'd started dating a beta who treated him well, who respected his boundaries, I felt like I'd won the lottery. You did this, he said. You gave me hope that it was possible. You did it, I corrected. I just showed you the path. You walked it yourself. When Hope was 2, we had a scare. Cameron got out of prison early. Good behavior, overcrowding, some technicality I didn't understand. And the first thing he did was violate his parole by trying to contact me. He sent a letter to my work. The advocacy center flagged it immediately, called the police, but I still had to read it. Had to see his handwriting, his words claiming that I'd ruined his life, that I owed him another chance, that he'd make me understand what I'd thrown away. I had a full panic attack in my office. Matthias felt it through the bond, left a board meeting to come get me. He's out, I managed when Matthias arrived. He's out, and he's trying to contact me, and he's going back, Matthias said firmly. Parole violation means automatic return to custody. He'll be locked up by tonight. But what if? No what ifs. Matthias cupped my face, made me look at him. He's not getting near you, not near Hope. I have security on the house, on your office, on Hope's daycare. He tries anything, and he goes back to prison for the full remaining sentence. Cameron was arrested that night, sent back to serve out the rest of his sentence with no possibility of early release this time. The police found evidence he'd been planning to kidnap me, to force me to leave Matthias and come back to him. The violation added 3 more years to his sentence. I slept easier after that. Hope's 3rd birthday party was in the penthouse, small gathering my coworkers, Matthias's business partners who'd become friends, Hope's little friends from daycare. She wore a princess dress and demanded that everyone call her Your Highness. She gets that from you, I told Matthias. She gets that confidence from you, he countered. You taught her she doesn't have to accept anything less than what she deserves. Watching Hope boss around adults twice her size, I realized he was right. She was growing up knowing she was loved, protected, valued. She'd never have to run from anyone, never have to hide, never have to grab a stranger on the street because she was that desperate. That night, after all the guests left and Hope was asleep, Matthias and I stood on the balcony, looking out at the city. Do you ever think about that day? I asked. The day I grabbed you? Every day. Really? Really. It was the best moment of my life. Well, second best after Hope was born, but it's up there. Even though I basically assaulted you in public? You didn't assault me. You trusted me. You saw an alpha, and instead of running away, you ran toward me. You must have sensed something even before the bond. Or I was just desperate and you happened to be there. Maybe. But I like my version better. I leaned against him, felt his arms come around me, felt the bond humming between us, steady, strong, permanent. I love you, I said. Even though you're bossy and overprotective and you built a nursery before I even agreed to have kids. I love you too, Matthias said. Even though you're stubborn and you broke a man's nose in my lobby and you refuse to let me carry you anywhere even when you're clearly exhausted. I can carry myself. I know you can. That's why I love you. 5 years after that street corner encounter, I stood in that same spot with Hope holding my hand. This is where I met your father, I told her. Did you fall in love immediately? She asked. She was obsessed with love stories lately. Not immediately. I was scared and he was confusing and I didn't trust him at all. But you love him now. So much. Why? I thought about it. Because he saw me when I was broken and he didn't try to fix me. He just stood next to me while I fixed myself. And when I needed help, he was there. Always. That's what daddies do, Hope said confidently. They keep you safe. Yes, that's exactly what they do. Matthias appeared then, walking toward us with coffee. He'd taken the afternoon off, something he did more often now that Hope was older. His priorities had shifted from work-obsessed CEO to present father and husband. Ready to go? He asked. Where are we going? Hope asked. Anywhere you want, princess. She chose the park. We spent the afternoon watching her play, pushing her on swings, catching her at the bottom of the slide. Normal, domestic, beautiful. That night, tucked into bed between Matthias and Hope, who'd insisted on sleeping with us, I thought about how far I'd come. From the Omega who couldn't trust anyone to the Omega surrounded by people he loved. From the scared kid running from his abuser to the social worker helping others escape theirs. From the desperate stranger hugging an alpha he didn't know to the husband sleeping next to his fated mate. No regrets? Matthias whispered in the dark. Never, I whispered back. And through the bond, through the quiet breathing of our daughter between us, through the life we'd built from one desperate moment on a street corner, I felt nothing but absolute certainty. This was where I was meant to be. This was home,